Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So I've been making my way through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and today I'm talking about Texas Chainsaw 3D. This came out in 2013, and this one tells a story of a young woman played by Alexandra Daddario who travels to Texas because she just found out about this relative she never knew she had. And she goes there to get this inheritance. Turns out it's this massive house. Little does she know is that the chainsaw-wielding killer Leatherface is part of the deal. And, of course, you know what happens. So there's no point in prolonging this. This is not a very good film. And this was one of the few films in this franchise that I had seen previously. So this was my second watch, and I was not looking forward to returning to it. And, you know, I held out maybe a glimmer of hope that maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I had remembered it. But yeah, it's definitely as bad as I remembered it. When you start off your movie showing flashback clips from the original film over the opening credits, and that turns out to be the best part of your movie, you are in trouble. And so outside of that, there's really only like two elements in this movie that I would say I even enjoy. The first one is this. I like the idea of having this film be a direct sequel to the original film and have it like literally continue on right where the first film ends. So they start off with the first few minutes of the movie with an intriguing idea. However, the execution of it beyond that point is not great because if you've seen this, you obviously know that once you get past the opening 10 or so minutes, you know, it jumps ahead 40 years or whatever, and the rest of the movie takes place in modern times. Now, before we jump ahead 40 years, we are right there where the original film left off, and you've got the police show up at the Sawyer house, then an angry mob shows up at the Sawyer house, and there's this massive slaughter, just this massacre. Tons of people get killed. And it's really at this point to where I'm starting to be like, you know, what is going on here? This is not great. First of all, there's like a ton of extra people at the Sawyer house that were not in the original movie. And so, you know, it's like, well, who are these people? Where did they come from? They just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And then, too, by having the townsfolk massacre the Sawyer family, the movie really kind of turns the Sawyers almost into these, like, victims, which is just such a weird idea and a terrible idea, really. And then also, too, I mean, we only see it really briefly, but Leatherface's mask here in this opening few minutes, we only see it for, like, a few seconds. It looks like this cheap plastic toy mask. And so outside of just the idea of picking up right where the original film ended, what they do with it beyond just that concept is not very good in my opinion. So then we jump ahead 40 years to present day, and we are introduced to Heather, played by, of course, Alexandra Daddario. And look, this is, I guess, maybe more of a nitpick, but she's supposed to be like 40 years old, because that's how long this film takes place after the original. Alexandra Daddario is not even remotely close to 40 years old when this movie came out. I think she was like maybe 25 or something, but we're supposed to believe, at least if the timeline is correct, she should be 40, but she's nowhere close to that. But anyways, and she finds out she had a grandma that she never knew about, and she has this inheritance, so she decides to take few of her friends. They drive to Texas to find out what the inheritance is. And along the way, they pick up a hitchhiker. And it's such this weird dichotomy between this movie and the original. Like, the hitchhiker they pick up here, let me tell you, nobody in the history of hitchhiking looks like this guy. This guy looks like he just, you know, climbed out of a fashion magazine sort of thing. Just this young, attractive, good-looking dude. And it's just ridiculous. But anyways, they pick this guy up and take him with them to Texas. So she finds out that her inheritance is this historic mansion. And so, you know, she's freaking out. Her and her friend and boyfriend and all that, they go in and explore the house. And then they make an extremely stupid decision, and this movie has a handful of them. They decide to leave the hitchhiker guy alone in the house while they go into town. and get some supplies. And of course, he decides to rob the place. And look, I could just pretty much go through the rest of the events of the movie and just kind of continually trash on this thing. And I probably will do that a little bit. Really, the only other element in this movie that I even find somewhat enjoyable is just that it has some cool kills. It's got, it's got some gory goodness to it. And so that helps a little bit, but just the vast majority of this thing is pretty terrible. While Daddario and her friends are in town getting stuff, she bumps into Scott Eastwood and meets him, and then she also meets the mayor, who is a pretty terrible guy. Of course, he's one of the guys who led the angry mob at the beginning of the movie. And again, it's such this weird idea to have the main antagonist of the movie be the scumbag mayor and not Leatherface. It's just such a wild decision. And let me tell you, this mayor is one of the most annoying and obnoxious characters. And I know he's supposed to be, but it doesn't help that it's just like the most kind of generic, cliched villain, just this corrupt guy. And to me, this mayor would fit perfectly in the Halloween Kills movie with the angry mob and the dude who keeps yelling, "Evil dies tonight." The mayor in this movie is that guy's brother. That's who he is. Just this obnoxious dude that you're just rooting to get killed in the most horrific way. Not only is the mayor a pretty terrible character, he's definitely the worst character, but the rest of the characters are not really good either. Alexandra Daddario, she's fine. She's just fine. She's okay. The rest of the characters, we either don't get enough of them to get any sort of character info out of them whatsoever, or they're just kind of unlikable. It turns out that her girlfriend and then her boyfriend are secretly hooking up, and so we just immediately dislike them and can't wait for them to be killed. So just the character work here is not doing this movie any favors whatsoever. And in addition to the bad characters, like so many other subpar horror movies, there's just a handful of terribly executed jump scares where let's just throw a blast of sound to try to startle the audience. There's a scene that happens once they get back to the house. One of the other guys, while he's making dinner, he ends up getting killed by Leatherface, but nobody knows what's going on because there's loud music playing. Daddario's boyfriend and her girlfriend, they sneak off to the barn to go hook up. And Daddario is just exploring the house, and she ends up finding this old dead woman upstairs. And that's never addressed again. It's such a weird thing. And now I don't know if it's Verna, who's the grandmother, and that's whose house it was. But I don't think it is, because they know that Verna's dead, including the person who handed over the estate to her and the will and all that stuff. So I would sure think that they wouldn't leave her dead body upstairs in the room. So there's just this random old woman who's upstairs in the house, and it's never addressed. Does anybody know who this is supposed to be? Is it supposed to be the grandma? If it is, that doesn't really make any sense to me, but whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it. Then Daddario gets attacked by Leatherface, and she gets knocked out. This scene is just really horribly put together. Just like she gets thrown against this table and then blacks out, and it all happens in like a couple of seconds. It's just a really bad scene. Anyways, now he takes her down to the dungeon. We get some cool gore and stuff like that where the one dude gets cut in half. The three characters who are left end up getting away. They get back into the van to escape the property. They decide to ram through the gate, which is just stupid. Anyways, there's this huge car wreck. The guy dies, her boyfriend dies. Leatherface shows up and starts attacking Daddario and the friend in the car. And I thought they missed out on like what could have been kind of a funny line here. Like I kept waiting for Alexandra Daddario to ask her friend where her pants are, because she was just messing around with her boyfriend in the barn and she doesn't have any pants on. But she ends up getting away after the car crash to try to lure Leatherface away. And then eventually she gets picked up by the police. They take her to the station. And then the mayor comes in and talks to the chief of police guy, and they decide to go investigate the Sawyer house to see what the heck is going on. And the following scene is one of the most mind-numbingly dumb scenes. as the mayor and the chief of police send an officer out to the Sawyer residence to go check it out. And they send one officer out, one, to go investigate this massacre. And the guy goes into the house, and of course there's blood everywhere. And they're watching this on a little phone. You know, there's blood everywhere, dead bodies. And he's going in there, and the mayor just keeps yelling at him like, man, what do I need to hold your hand? Get in there. It's like, dude, you can't just wait 5 minutes for backup or something. It's just so stupid. Anyways, he finds Leatherface's dungeon. And it's just a total massacre. And it's like, how much more do you need to investigate before you get your one guy out of there to safety and wait for more police officers to show up? But of course, they don't do that. I will give the movie a little bit of credit here, because when he opens up the freezer and shoots the girl in the head, that's actually a pretty kind of fun and shocking little moment there that I didn't expect. So I'll give the movie a little bit of credit there. But the rest of the scene is just painfully stupid. Then we get another stupid scene where Alexandra Daddario ends up fleeing the police station because she finds the file that showed the true story of what happened all those years ago at the Sawyer residence, and how the townsfolk, led by the now mayor, started this massacre and slaughtered her entire family. So she meets with the guy who originally gave her the inheritance. And he, back at the earlier part in the movie, he says, hey, there's this letter, make sure you read it. She just went through the most horrifically traumatic few hours of her life. And she's talking to this guy, she's like, all my friends are dead. You knew about Leatherface, and all he can say is, did you read the letter? And it's just hilarious, because it's like, I guess apparently this entire thing could have been avoided if she would have just read a letter. Let me tell you, if the entire believability of your plot hinges on whether or not somebody reads a letter, you probably should do a rewrite. And then to top all that off, it's like, how in the world would reading the letter have possibly helped, right? Can you imagine? Because we finally get to hear what it says at the end of the movie. And it's like, oh, by the way, there is a psychotic serial killer who wears human flesh as a mask living in your basement. Please take care of him and make sure he gets fed. It's like, dude, what is going on? And then, as if all that isn't bad enough, the climax of this movie takes it to yet another level of stupidity. It's like the last half of this movie, they just kind of continually outdo themselves in how stupid they can make this thing. Leatherface has Alexandra Daddario chained up, and of course he sees the little scar on her chest with the S, and that means, he now knows that she's family. And so now I guess they're friends, and like everything's fine. And the chief of police shows up, and he's ready to shoot Leatherface, and she's like, no, don't shoot him. And it's like, but he literally just murdered all of your friends in the last couple of hours, and now you don't want him killed? Like, what just happened here? It is the most baffling decision for a writer to make. So the mayor ends up getting killed. The chief of police just decides to let Leatherface go. And Alexandra Daddario and Leatherface go back to the house, and she is now going to take care of him because they're family, and everybody lives happily ever after. It's just the dumbest ending. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to really turn Leatherface into a victim and like make him into an anti-hero sort of thing. It's just all around terrible. It's just terrible. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it. So I really hope that this is the last time I ever have to watch this movie. Needless to say, I am not a fan. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts on Texas Chainsaw 3D. I'm like a 2 out of 10 for this one. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. Let me know what you guys think of this one. It's pretty bad. But anyways, that's all I got for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.